How to flip data from wide format to long format using SAS.
In this video, I'll be demoing how to flip a wide file, which is essentially a data file that has one row per person and one variable for each time point. So the different time points are listed as columns in your data set with one row for each person, into a long file that has multiple rows per person with all time points for the same variable stacked on top of each other. The long file is a file that's necessary to run many software applications that deal with longitudinal and intensive longitudinal data. So if you're interested in things like multi-level modeling, generalized estimating equations, or the time-varying effect modeling macro, you'll need to have your data in long format before you can use those. So the code that I'll be running through is available on the Methodology Center website, and I'll be taking you through that now. The first bit of code creates a wide data set. So we're sort of making up a fake data set and we're just assigning some numbers to it just to have a physical file that we can then flip into a long form. And I'll be walking through two ways of flipping data. So one way is to use something called array statements. And these are particularly useful if you have variables that have many, many time points, or if you have many variables that you want to flip. It's sort of the power version of flipping data. And I also have some code here that shows you how to do this by hand, which is useful if you have only a few variables and maybe only a few time points and you just like a simple and straightforward way to flip your data. Okay, so let's come up here to our example data that we're making. So we're making a wide file that has three variables. We'll scroll up to these labels that have variable names. So the first variable is ID, and that's the participant ID. So that's one variable per person, and it marks the person ID. Then we have mood, and this can be negative mood, positive mood, but it's one assessment for each of the 7 days that we have in the data. And drinking, which could be the count of number of drinks consumed that day, and we have one assessment for each of the 7 days. So what I'm going to first create is a wide file that has, it's sort of shaped like what you can see here under the data lines statement, where you'll have ID 1001, and then you'll have their 7 mood values for each of the 7 days, and then there's 7 drinking values for each of the 7 days. All right, so I will run this code first, and then I'll run a proc print statement so you can see the data in your output. Okay, and that's what our data set looks like. We have a mood value for each of the 7 days for each person, and a drinking value for each of the 7 days for each person. And each of the days is listed as a separate column. Each value for each day is listed as a separate column. And that's why we call it a wide file. Okay, so the first thing we will do to flip it over is to use something called an array statement. So here in my data step, I'm creating a new data set that's called long, and I'm basing it on this set that's called wide. Okay, and the wide data is the data that we just made. Then I do two statements that start with the word array. And so in an array statement, what I'm telling SAS is how to order these 7 variables, okay, or sorry, these 7 time points for each variable. So I create an array statement, and then I put A and then mood. Okay, so this is not making a new variable yet. This is just telling SAS the order, and I give this order a label, and we're basically telling SAS which variables go into this, and then in which order do we place them. So the array statement A mood goes from 1 to 7, and that's this 1:7 here. And then I arrange my mood 1 dash mood 7. Okay, I could have put mood 1, mood 2, mood 3, mood 4, etc. But this is a SAS shortcut for capturing all of the variables within the range of 1 to 7. Okay, and then I do the same thing for drinking. Then I create a variable underneath it using a do statement, and because this is a daily diary data set, my time is marked by day. And so I tell SAS do which essentially means make a variable that's called day that goes from 1 to 7. And then using the array information, make new variables called mood and drink that sort the values of 1 to 7 along this day variable that goes from 1 to 7. So I take the array name a mood, and I order it according to day, and then I take drink, this a drink array, and I order it according to day, and those create two variables called mood and drink that will capture all of the 7 values for each variable. Then I tell SAS to output it into a new data set and end this loop that I've created here that starts with the do statement and ends with the end statement. Then I provide some study labels. In my new file, I'll want to know that day has the value of day of study, so that's the label for this variable. Mood is mood today, and then drink is number of drinks today. And then I tell SAS in my new file, remember I'm making the purpose of this is to make a new data set that's called long. I tell SAS only to keep the ID, day, mood, and drink variables. I could have dropped this line and SAS would have kept all of the variables in while also making a long file, but to only include the new variables that I've made, this is actually going to drop the original wide variables and give us a nice lean long data set. So I'll run this code. Okay. And we can always check to see if these things worked in the log file. Okay. And what you can see here is that it looks like it did. There were 3 observations read from wide, and then the data was converted to long. And let's print this so we can see what it looks like. So I run my proc print command, and now you see that I have the same IDs. Okay, so I have 1001, 1002, 1003, but now the mood and drink variables are stacked on top of each other. So now they're ordered according to day, lengthwise. Okay, so you can see the mood value on day 1 is sorted with day 1 for day 2, etc. Okay, so that's one way to do this. Another way to do this is to do it manually. Okay, and so I'm making a new data set called long2 in this next code. So I say data long2, basing it on the wide data set that we started with. And then I just tell SAS that to create a variable called day, and it equals 1. And then to make a variable called mood and drink, where mood equals mood1, drink equals drink1, and now output those as a data set. And I repeat this process for each of the 7 days. So day equals 2 underneath the first output statement, mood equals mood2, drink equals drink2, output. And essentially for each day I'm outputting a new data set that then gets stacked on top, or gets stacked underneath the previous rather. Okay, and I do that all the way from days 1 to 7. And then at the end I use this keep statement to tell SAS only to keep ID, day, mood, and drink. Okay, so this gives you, this is a bit of a simpler version of flipping data. I think of this as being a little bit more intuitive than the arrays. So let's run this, and then let's take a look at the proc print, and you will see that it gives you the exact same result. Okay, we have IDs 1000, so person 1000 has 7 days of data. Each day of data is stacked underneath the other. It's ordered by day of the study, and we have each of the mood and drink values in separate columns ordered by day.
Thank you for watching. You can learn more about TVEM, including watching more videos in this series at the Methodology Center's website.